Okay. All right. Well, hello everybody. My name's Ian Hanna. I'm one of the QZ users, and a little bit active on the Facebook group there. I thought it'd be great to meet the man behind QZ, Roberto Viola. He's obviously in Italy. I'm currently in Canada, but we're going to do an online chat and figure out a little bit more about QZ and what makes it so special. Because I know for a lot of people in the group, myself included, it's been a real game changer in allowing our fitness equipment to work with some of the great online apps that are out there in Zwift, Ruby, and pretty much any other of the apps QZ allows your equipment to connect to. So hi, Roberto.
Hi.
Welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
I've got a list of questions. I think just a lot of them general interest, and then we'll dive into a little bit into the app a bit more. Tell us a little bit about your background. Like, where did you start? And
I play with the computer as any nerd from the age of 6. I started with the Commodore 64, and so then to the computer. I have a PC degree in Italy, so I started to work with as a firmware developer. So a firmware developer is just a software developer specialized in doing software for embedded components like, I don't know, washing machine, television, industry machine. So very specific software inside components, so not just PC software. So usually it's something that there is no user interface. So that's probably why QZ is so ugly for someone. And basically, I started with this, and there are already 20 years that I'm a firmware developer, and then QZ the boards, and and now I'm also a mobile developer for sure. But
right.
One of my biggest interests is of course sport. I never did indoor sport before creating QZ, so that's quite funny because everything started with QZ actually.
Is that right? So were you into sports? Like, were you into it, like using treadmills or indoor bikes before, or is that just something
Never. I never went to a gym, for example. So I started running from the age of 18. Now I'm 41, so it's quite a lot. I never be a pro, just an amateur with low paces and so on. So I'm just running for fun. But I always try to go outdoors for my workouts because I guess I can think more, and so you can feel the pain a little less than practicing in indoor. But then with QZ, probably I started a new way to involving myself into an indoor sport, because I have something to think about it when I practice in indoor. So it's different
right.
now.
Well, I mean, certainly, Italy doesn't have the worst winters. I know a lot of the world, heads indoors when winter happens, and certainly here in Canada, that happens to a lot of athletes and people like myself who go, it may be a bit too cold outside to work out. And of course, the indoor training market has exploded in the last 5 years. Probably Zwift is the precursor to a lot of the other apps, but there's certainly been a massive growth in Peloton type systems. So that sort of brings us on to the next question then. Like, what gave you the idea to create something like QZ? Like, if you weren't sort of like, massively into indoor riding or indoor sports, what gave you the inspiration for it?
Everything started, of course, with the COVID. The COVID brings ourselves into our house, so I forced it to practice sport at home. So I said to my wife, "Hey, why don't you why don't we buy a treadmill and just practice ourselves at home? Because also my wife is a runner, so I guess it was a good idea. And the only thing that I checked before buying it is it has Bluetooth, and yes, it has. It had. So I say, okay, let's buy it, and I will practice with Zwift, and so it should be easy, right? And then when it arrived, I just checked that Zwift wasn't compatible with my treadmill. That, by the way, it's a qdomyos one. It's a European company, yeah. And so I said, okay, that's insane. It's a 100-kilogram treadmill that I can't return because it's very heavy and very difficult to ship. So I said, okay, I have to do something. And so I started to check the Bluetooth specification of the treadmill, and I started a very proof of concept of the QZ app, and I say, hey, wow, I can read the metrics from the treadmill somehow, because at the very beginning I was very a novice on the Bluetooth area, so it was very hard at the very beginning, because you can see the strange numbers on the screen when you are trying to get the Bluetooth data. So you have to give them a meaning. So it's very hard because there is no one that can help you on this. You are just you with your device, and you have to hack it, to crack it. So this is what I did. And it's funny because if you check on the GitHub, because also GitHub is open source. If you check on GitHub, the first commit, it's of the day of my birthday, 10th of September. So I guess I gave him myself a birthday present. Keeping setting the variableness of my treadmill to Zwift. So this is how everything started. And so just the treadmill for the beginning.
I see. So you started with the treadmill. You started to figure out what all this Bluetooth data meant. I guess you were looking at like Zwift as a platform to connect it to. Was that what you were trying to get it to work?
At the very beginning, I knew only Zwift because Peloton, for example, here in Italy, it's not available. So I didn't know before all the QZ stuff started. So in my idea, the only app that should add the compatibility to it was just Zwift. And then, of course, I learned a lot of other platforms. But in my idea, it was just Zwift at the very beginning. Because I guess it was funny to run on Zwift.
Yeah, which of course makes sense. I mean, being probably the biggest platform. I mean, say Peloton's a slightly different platform, obviously huge in a lot of the world. But we'll get onto that a little bit a little later. But so for one question, maybe it's a simple question. The name QZ, like, where did that come from? Because at the time, I don't think, because I assume this is decathlon. Is that right? The qdomyos treadmill, is that from a decathlon?
So it's composed by 3 parts, actually. Okay, the Zwift part, it's the easiest one. qdomyos is the name of the treadmill, because as I said, I was just thinking about my treadmill, not all the devices. And the Q at the very beginning, it's the name. It's the start of the name of the framework that I'm using. That it's Qt. Usually, when an app uses the Qt framework, it starts with Q. So, not the name qdomyos-zwift. It was just like any other, Linux name package, because in my idea, I just thought about the Linux ecosystem at the very beginning. I wasn't thinking about a mobile app at all. So that's why of the name.
Okay, well, that list explains it. I was kind of curious, like where it all came from. I think
Yeah,
Domus is those like decathlon hasn't been a big feature in North America certainly until fairly recently, and so I wasn't even aware of them as a brand until
yeah,
probably the last couple of years when they've opened a lot of stores here now,
yeah,
and I kind of understood what that meant once I
yeah.
saw the brand there.
And then in the years, of course, a lot of users in the community started calling in QZ, and I really like it. So I just did the switch to that name because I guess it was easier to remember.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good, and I like some of the graphic design along the logos that people have put out. I think it's a great name now. So we did talk a little bit about some of the biggest challenges, when you first started, but there was nothing else, I guess, that was like it, right? I mean, there was no other software packages that you could have found that could help you, or whether something, somewhere on GitHub there was some library.
No, not at all, because what I tried to do and what I achieved to do is to handle all the protocols, and of course the company that are producing their devices are not open on this because they are trying to force yourself to use the device with their app because they are collecting data from them, and so they are gaining. Even if the app is free for the user, they are gaining something from the user itself. So that's the big reason. For example, I didn't want to use the Domios app because Domios has an application for my treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very focused on the security side and security and stuff. So one of the big point of QZ, and I don't know if the users are aware, but I'm saying here now, so maybe someone is listening. It everything is that's QZ is running locally. Everything is local. There is no server side. Of course, there is the Strava thing, but Strava is just a third-party application. So you are sending the data because you want to send to Strava. But if you want to run QZ locally, every line of the code of the QZ app is running locally. So that's probably one of the hidden part of QZ, but for me it's very important because I'm always thinking about don't collect data from the users if they don't want to. So I'm very focused about this particular topic.
Well, that's great because obviously I think the whole world nowadays feels like data mining in some form, right? Every time you turn on something, somebody's watching what you do.
Yeah.
So QZ is local. The only information, of course, you get sent, I guess, is when you do the uploads into Strava. As far as I can see, that's it.
Yeah. Of course, I'm getting data from the Peloton server with the Peloton API, but I'm getting them. I'm not sending data to Peloton, for example. So it's just the difference between read data and push data. So QZ is just pushing when, for example, the user wants to send the summary email to himself, or as I said, Strava. There are probably other things that I'm forgetting about, but from the standard, the default point of view, no data are leaving your device. So that's very important for me.
Oh, that's great. But I also know you're talking about sort of adding like history and things into the app, aren't you? Like user sort of application history. Would that also be locally based then, or would that be?
Yeah. In my idea, actually, I have already a branch on my GitHub with this feature. Everything is stored locally. So your fit file, for example, is the source of this database, and they are stored on your phone. Of course, you can backup it, but they are running locally. I don't want to create something on the cloud because there are too many policy involved for the different countries. So since QZ is just Roberto Viola and I have no other people that can help me with this. I thought that run everything local is the biggest winning thing about QZ, because so I don't have to fight with with laws, different laws in the country or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
why.
Okay, well, that's like really interesting, and sort of I think you get a lot of support from a lot of people on that. On that sort of note, again, is QZ open source essentially?
Yeah.
Is that how you've decided to move forward with the app? And the question is why? Like, why have you kept it that way?
There is a story behind this. So okay, let's start from the beginning. Yeah, as I said, I started with my treadmill, and so for 1 month or two, the only device supported was my treadmill. I did push my code on GitHub, so it was open source from the very first line of code. And in the very first month, I received some contact from some users around the world that were trying to connect to their treadmill and so on. Then I have to mention that this story, because it's the biggest event on the QZ history. A user called Mark Logan, that is still on Facebook, and we are friends. They are on Facebook and Messenger. It pushed a question on the GitHub profile of QZ saying, "Hey, why don't you integrate the same thing that you did for the treadmill for the Echelon spin bike?" I saw this post and I said, "Echelon bike? What is it? I don't know. I don't care about them, because I'm a runner guy. So let's go away with this. I don't really like it." But after that, I said, "Hey, why don't you play with the Bluetooth protocol?" Because Mark Logan said, "I can provide you some information and you can try to crack." And I thought, "Oh, okay, could be fun. At least I can see if I can use the experience that I did with my treadmill also in another device. So it could be fun." I say, "Okay, let's try this." And line after line after line, I guess in a week, we had a working version with the Echelon bike. It was just reading the metrics, not as it does now, control the bike actively, but it was just reading the metric, but it worked. So I say, "Wow." And Mark Logan says to me, "Roberto, you created a monster now, because a lot of people probably want to use this what you did now." But I say, "Mark, okay, but just a Linux application. So how I can distribute this to the other users?" And he said, "Hey, why don't you try to create a mobile app?" But porting an application from a Linux device to a mobile application, it was a completely different thing, because there are so many things involved, from the user interface, from the API. It was very crazy. But at the end of the year, I guess it was the 12th of December. I started at September, so not very far. I published my first version on the Apple Store, and right after that, also on the Google Play Store with the compatibility. So now I can answer to your question, why you are putting QZ open source. Because if Mark didn't see my code, I didn't see what I did, probably he never contacted me. And so QZ probably it shouldn't exist. So learning something from this, I said to me, okay, open source will be always the key from all my apps, because I guess open source can give you more than what you can give to the community, because it's just an exchange with the other users. That closed application can't do this. So QZ is 100% open source. Every line of code is on GitHub from the very first day. And this is very, very important also for me, because I'm not stealing data from anyone, and also I'm providing the data to the world. I'm just not hiding anything.
Yeah, which is great, because open source, can be such a boon to so many people, and so much development. I'm curious though, like have you ever been contacted by people like Zwift or any of the other companies saying, hey, what are you doing? Like allowing other bikes to work with us? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I guess I talked with all the companies around the indoor sports. Zwift, Kinemap, Peloton, iFit. I guess I talked with all of them. Some of them where they were, I don't know, scared from the first sight of QZ. Some of them are excited about the work around it. But in the end, the common part of all these companies was, hey, are you trying to steal users from me, or are you trying to push user to my platform too? And of course, the answer was always the second one. So QZ, it just brings more users to the online companies that the company can do by itself, because QZ is bringing online some devices that are not born with the idea to provide data to a third-party application.
Right. Well, it certainly is the case. For me, I now subscribe to Zwift and Ruby and others because of that. Having said that, I have an Echelon bike, and I love Echelon, and I'm going to continue subscribing to their online platform as well. So yeah, but that ability to have different options in your fitness is really important, because frankly, online fitness can get a little repetitive at times. Even though they have online classes. So the variety that QZ has given to a lot of people, I think, is its strength. Well, that's good to know that the companies are supportive of you. Does that apply to the hardware companies too? It strikes me that might be a bit more problematic, no?
I talked with some hardware company. For example, iFit was one of them, but they were just interested in about the work of what I did and on the app itself. I talked with Elite, that is an Italian company that produce a lot of trainer for indoor biking. For example, the Elite Suite. There are a lot of them. It's quite famous in the indoor bike sports. But most of them were just interesting about the work, and if they can, for example, integrate their new devices into QZ. But this is just the very small part of the code base, because most of the protocol were cracked by myself, checking the log and creating from scratch a protocol to communicate with them. So that's it.
Right. I see. So, I mean, QZ, obviously, I've been with it for probably, 3 years, I guess, kind of early COVID, like you mentioned, probably somewhere at that point. I've seen at least the Facebook page grow immensely. I mean, you got like 15,000 subscribers just to your Facebook page alone. It's clearly, it struck a chord with people. People are looking for a solution to this because of the online devices. I know really very little about Bluetooth. I know even less about FTMS and other protocols. Like, can you explain really briefly, like how does QZ connect to all these devices? How does it sort of work in brief terms?
Yeah, sure. I try to keep it simple. That's quite easy from the user point of view. So when a fitness device is not compatible with QZ, I'm asking to the user to collect some data from the fitness device to the application that the producer of the fitness device developed. So in this way, I can see how their application is talking with their fitness device. But of course, these data are encrypted, so there is no instruction. So what I did is I'm checking this frame, this code, and with my knowledge, of course, I was trying to implement directly this communication, understanding which is the meaning of each, which part of the code, and then trying to recreate their app on QZ. So just the part of the Bluetooth communication directly in QZ. So actually, for the fitness device, it's just, hey, I'm talking with my app. But actually, QZ is taking the part of the app itself and collecting the data from the fitness device. So actually, it's just sending the right part of code via Bluetooth to the fitness device. So that's basically it. Of course,
So, I mean,
it's more complex than this.
Well, that's yeah, I completely believe that. I guess I'm imagining that things like on bikes, you're looking for things that look like the cadence and things that maybe look like resistance in all the information that's coming out, and trying to figure out, which is the resistance information and which is the cadence.
Exactly.
So I assume then all these fitness equipment must have the very different sort of protocols. I'm aware of the FTMS as a sort of a standard, but that's changing how things happen, I guess. So that's, as far as I'm aware, this is now a standard for fitness equipment to send data.
Yeah.
And the older equipments really don't support that. And then we were really working with sort of some of the older equipment. Is that the case? Will FTMS change how QZ works, or?
In the last 2 years, a lot of manufacturers are providing also FTMS to their device, trying to open themselves to the standard protocol, because people now want FTMS. So they are aware that opening their communication protocol is something that the user could like. But of course, there are a lot of old devices that are working. They are still working correctly, so the user don't want to change. That don't have FTMS, and also there are devices with FTMS that should be a standard, but they are not 100% compatible with FTMS. So that's where QZ is trying to fix the hole, And also in the last, I guess, 3 or 4 months, one of the biggest point of my development is trying to fix the gap that Zwift did when it developed the virtual gearing for the indoor bikes, because they implemented virtual gearing as QZ had since I guess 2022. So they basically copied the concept, but I'm not saying they are copying, but okay, QZ has it in the 2022. So okay, but anyway, Zwift creates a node because they support virtual gearing only for just a small part of the fitness devices, because of course Zwift is trying to force the users to buy their own devices, the new devices. So since virtual shifting at the end is just software, I'm trying to, and I did, of course, fix the gap. So I bring the virtual shifting to all the fitness devices, with also the gear control from the Zwift interface by itself, because I'm basically faking a Zwift device to Zwift. So they are seeing a Zwift device, but in the other side, there is QZ that is translating the commands to an unsupported trainer, for example, tax, or for example, any other FTMS compatible devices. So, answering to your question, the fact that the manufacturers are developing FTMS also to their fitness device is changing, because it's easier for me, but also QZ is still more important because it's still giving something more to the user. So it's very nice, because someone that should not use the QZ for their devices, at the end it's still using it because they need a particular feature from it. So that's nice.
Yeah, the virtual shifting is something that's become quite a thing out there in the virtual training market. I think I mentioned to you on Facebook, it feels like we've been having it for the last 2-3 years on QZ. It didn't seem such a revolution to me, but I guess for a lot of people, it's a big thing now. I see a lot of Zwift people talking about it, and you've even, I think, implemented the play controllers, I believed. The play controllers, the Zwift play controllers.
Yeah, the play control. Yeah.
So that now is operational through QZ, right? That's you can use them.
You have both ways. You can connect the Zwift Play device inside QZ. So, for example, you can use the Zwift Play device in QZ, for example, in Ruby, another application. Yeah. Or you can also have the Zwift Play device connected to Zwift and collecting and sending the information to QZ to change the resistance to your fitness trainer.
So, I mean, that brings me, there's a lot of questions, of course, but, one thing I think, I, as a user, certainly when I first started with QZ, and even today, there are so many options within QZ. There are so many ways to actually use the app now. Do you ever find that it's a bit overwhelming? You obviously deal with it day in, day out, but for a lot of new users, do you think there's, that people get a little bit overwhelmed by all the configurations that you can use it?
Yeah, I guess this is one of the most, bad part of QZ in these days, because user, when open the settings page, is just seeing a lot of things that, of course, QZ can do, but at the very beginning, the user is very, overwhelmed. So, yes, of course, it's something that I'm trying to working with. In the last version, I created a wizard from the startup when the user download the app for the first time, and you can recall it again from the left sidebar to recreate the wizard page. And this is what I'm trying to do, to create an easier way to the first-time users. But what I'm trying to always to explain to my user is this one. It's very simple. For example, let's take the Echelon app as an example. Echelon app has, I don't know, 10, 15 settings, okay? But the app works just with 2 free devices. They are quite similar, and treadmill, rower, and a bike. But they are just from the Echelon side. QZ now handles more than 1,000 different devices. So I can't simple hiding everything under the hood and say, okay, it's work, because there are so many different little things that every user should change. Not has to change, but should change, because from scratch, QZ should work with your device without doing anything. And this is my starting point. But every user wants a different experience. And in my idea, every user has to be okay with this experience. And since fitness is very important for me, I guess it's very important also for the other QZ users. So being okay with the experience, it's for me a priority, and that's why I create a lot of setting, because everyone should be pleased with the experience. So I always suggest to the first time user, hey, don't mind about the setting, just play with it, just do a run, do a ride. Are you okay with this, or do you want something more? And then you can try to play with settings. But for the very first time user, I'm just saying this all the time. I'm receiving an email saying, hey, I see a lot of settings. How can I do? How should I change them? No, the answer is simply no. If it's working for you, you don't have to change anything. If you want something more, yeah, let's discuss what's your target, and let's try to make it happen. But this is my idea behind the setting. Of course, in the next month, I will try to redesign a little the user interface in the settings page, at least, trying to accommodate the user's request. But at the end, the settings should remain, because settings are made for this, because you can change something in the experience.
Yeah, I get that. I think one of the things that really helped me was be able to create different profiles, and try them, and then if something got messed up, I would reload one of my earlier profiles. So that was really helpful in sort of like exploring how the changes would impact things. I like to do experiment a little bit, and then would save a profile and go back to see if that worked, and then I would do it. Perhaps maybe a profile repository or somewhere where people could share profiles for different equipment or something like that could be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I started the idea 1 year ago, but in the community page wasn't so, I didn't have a lot of reaction, so I abandoned the idea. But of course, it's still possible, because they are just files, so they are not containing any private information, so the users can share it freely.
Yeah, it's certainly an idea, because I think some of the challenges I think are for people are just how many configuration options there are, and which kind of brings on to the next question, because I think anybody who's used QZ and is part of the Facebook group, certainly, and the plethora of other forums that you're on, know that you are really responsive and really helpful for users. Like, how much time and how much challenge is it for you to constantly be doing this? Is this your only job? I mean, are you now full-time QZ, or is this just something you're still doing as part of your day-to-day work as well?
No, okay. QZ for me is still an hobby, so it's not my first job. I have a regular job, so I'm working on QZ on my spare time. Actually, it's very hard, because I'm not I'm a person that sleep very few hours every night. I guess I slept 5 or 6 hours at maximum. Usually my routine is trying to have a run in the morning, but before the run, I'm always asking to all the questions that I received during the night. So, and this is my start of the day of each day. Saturday and Sunday are involved too. So it's a never stopping work for me. So yeah, started my routine with answering the email, have my run, go to my regular job, doing my job, go back home to answer to all the email that I received during the day, trying to develop in something, and also trying to stay with my family, because I have a little daughter. She is now 2 years old, so it's now he asking me a lot of energy right now. But basically, QZ is taking all my spare time, so I don't have any other time for anything else besides running. So it can take from the 5 to 8 hour every single day per
Wow.
365 days at the year. So I never go to vacation for that, because I tried to say, okay, let's not look the email for one day, but the next day it was a mess. So I'm trying to have a focus on answering the email in order to have small amount of work every time, because it's the only way that I can handle them.
You must have a very patient wife. That's all I can say.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Good. Yeah, that's an awful lot of work, and it's pretty much just you, right? There's no really one else involved in QZ at this
No,
point.
there are users that helped me a lot. I said, for example, Mark Logan, that's probably the first mobile user that I had, but there are a lot of them that helped me in the process. Also, I took the occasion to give a big thanks to all the community on Facebook, on Reddit, and also to all the part that nobody is seeing, that are the email users. Because just to give you a number, I'm receiving more than 200 email every single day, without counting Facebook group, Reddit, other Discord, for example, Telegram. I have users that call me on WhatsApp, on Messenger, wherever. So I have to for thank to the community that is trying to answer to my question when I'm not available. So a very big thank.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you may have unleashed a monster.
Yeah.
It's which is really, I mean, full credit to you, because it's not obviously been an easy thing to get going, but clearly, as I said before, it's really struck a chord with people and fulfilling a really big need. So the problem with creating something like that, of course, is it can sort of overwhelm you. So I guess something to bear in mind, because I mean, work-life balance is certainly something that's real, and it's got to be managed.
Yeah. As I said to my wife, until I can handle this, I still work on this. When my mental health was completely gone, I will say white flag, and
that's the one good thing about sports, is it does help that mental health issue, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly,
you've created a very good app to help people with dealing with stress.
Exactly.
Which that brings me to another point, and it's more of a point than a question. There are some ways to sort of continually support you in the development through Patreon or buy you a coffee, beyond just the initial subscription, which is the purchase, which is really very cheap and reasonable. I think it's always good to let people know that there are different ways to support you, and subscribing either through Patreon or buy you a coffee is, I think, a great way to thank you for all the work that you do, because you really do answer a lot of questions and help people a lot. So I think it's worth putting that out there. So one thing with QZ, and as I'll reach towards the end here, but it has multiple ways of using it. One thing I see that it can use as connect with Peloton. It can connect to other apps. It can be used as a standalone fitness app as well, right? You can actually input 3D files, and it's something that I haven't done myself, but maybe you could just tell users a little bit of what other things you can do with QZ, like as a standalone. What features does it have?
Yeah, as you said, QZ was born actually with the idea to have a bridge application, so bringing your device to another application. But in this process, I said to me, hey, why I should use another application if in the end it's my effort, and I could try to create something new that I like to do with this. So I created, as you said, one of the biggest thing is that you can load a workout that you did outdoor, for example, a ride or a run, and you can load it in QZ, and you can see the 3D maps in real time. So you are moving in the 3D maps. And also QZ is changing the resistance if you are doing on a bike, it's changing the inclination if you are doing on a treadmill. And also QZ can change the pace if you are on a treadmill based on your outdoor experience, if you want, of course. And another great thing about QZ is that you can load the training program. There are just basic training program in the app, and I would like to create more, but in the end, the user can download or create training programs wherever they want. I'm actually creating them with ChatGPT because at the very end, it's just a text file, so you can prompt to ChatGPT, okay, create me a workout with these, with these characteristics, and it will create easily. So you can just import it in QZ and see the real-time chart, for example. QZ can change, of course, the resistance on the bike and inclination on the treadmill and so on. One of the probably hidden feature that QZ had, and I'm using it every day in this way, is the fact that QZ can control your fitness device based on your heart rate. So, for example, today I did my 2-hour run, and I want to do a slow pace run. But instead of just saying, okay, QZ, go at, I don't know, 10 kilometers by hour, just put me in the second zone of my heart. And QZ, following your heart, is trying to modulate the speed and the inclination to keep it in that target. And it's very important for people that has, for example, heart issue, because you can increase your effort too much. And so QZ, it's also trying to help these people, because you can say to QZ, okay, let's stay below 120 beats. And so QZ is trying to always to keep you down as possible to stay on the zone. And this is probably one of the hidden feature. And actually, I developed this for my wife that has some health issue in the past. So I created this for her. But at the end, I'm actually the very first user of the feature. So yeah.
Well, I mean, again, that's great. I mean, I say it's such a multifunctional tool, and you've put all these functions in. I still think there are some challenges for users in the interface and trying to get it all working. Maybe that's something that later on you can address. But I'm always amazed how many features there are in this. Essentially, what was a bridging app has now become its own sort of sports workout tool, which is fantastic. So, are there any hardware limitations for QZ? I know, and I'll go back to some of my experience. I think early days, you and I chatted, I had some Bluetooth issues, especially I think connecting around Ruby and some manufacturers of an Android tablet whose Bluetooth just wouldn't connect. Are there any hardware limitations you found that, particularly difficult?
Yeah, Bluetooth is completely a madness for me, because radio protocol are crazy in general. But Bluetooth probably is the hardest one, because there are so many peculiar things that you have to address in order to have a stable experience. Okay, let's start, for example, in the comparison about Apple versus Android. Apple has a few devices against Android, because the Android, the Android devices are thousands and thousands. So Apple did a great job with the Bluetooth part of their phones. So usually Apple devices are the perfect thing for Bluetooth, because they are very reliable and strong communication and so on. Android devices, from the other side, can have very poor Bluetooth chip inside them. So you can have, for example, disconnection, or for example, the Bluetooth chip is so poor that can't bridge the devices. So for example, you can connect to a device, but you can't send the metrics to another application, for example. So this is one of the limitation of the cheap Android tablet. From the other side, for example, I guess it's from the Garmin versus Apple war. For example, you can't use on Apple the ANT+ protocol that is very common on Garmin users. So, but you can do this only on Android. So there are always downside on each platform. So you have to choose carefully the device you would like to try. On my personal setup, I'm using my old iPhone as a QZ device. So I can just turn it on and I can say, okay, it's connecting and I know it's working. The battery it lasts forever because I'm using only for QZ, and I can answer into email to messages on my first phone. So this is basically my setup. My wife is using Android, so she can also answer the emails because Android has a better background handling of the app, so it doesn't kick out the application when it's running in background. It's something that Apple is doing more often because it's trying to keep the battery last for many time, but Android did this job differently. So that, for example, can run in background. That's something that you can't do on iOS. So you have, when you choose the device to use with QZ, you have to ask yourself how you would like to use QZ and how you would like to use the device that you're using for QZ. Most of the users are using QZ on their first phone, of course. But,
right. So is there a popularity between Android and iPhone? Is there more users on one platform or the other, or are they kind of evenly split?
Yeah, for sure, iOS have more users. I don't have any. I don't have any analytics because, as I said, I didn't put any metric inside, but I can see from the downloads. I guess it's 3 versus 1. So Apple, I guess it's because it's the application has a cost. So usually on Android, users want the application for free. Usually, instead on iOS, the users it's more usually spend some money for an application. So it has this in mind. So I guess it's something that Apple creates in the time. But the QZ app works great on both platforms. So it's just how the user want to use it.
I found once I found a tablet. I'm working on an Android tablet. Once I'd found a tablet that seemed to be solid, I haven't changed it since, and it's been great. But I had challenges certainly with some tablets for sure on Android.
Yeah.
And even on an iPad, an old iPad was still having some issues. But now I've got one that works. And for people, it's the Samsung S6 Lite. QZ has been rock solid on it through all the applications I use. So, a question you brought up briefly, it does use the ANT protocol as well. Is that correct? Like you can use ANT.
One of the feature that I added the last year was exactly to send metrics to ANT+, also getting metrics from ANT+. But basically, you can have one measure feature on your Garmin device. That's the training effort, because Garmin calculate the training effort only if it receives the metrics from an ANT devices. And so, or from the watch itself, of course. So if you are a Garmin user, definitely use an Android device for QZ because you can use ANT+, and so having the train effort to the Garmin side. So that's the main reason.
Got it. Yeah. So what, I mean, as you know, kind of just want to kind of finish up here, and you know, what is your current favorite feature, and where do you think you're going to take QZ in the future?
Actually, as I said, my favorite feature was the heart, air following training. But yeah, it probably is just me. It's because I like this. But what's next? I thought a lot about this because from the fitness device supporting side, I guess QZ handles probably the 99% of the devices around there. So now my job as a hacker, I don't know how to call it. Probably it's near to the end. So now I guess I can focus more on the user interface and the feature around QZ. So for sure, in the near future, what I'm trying to do, as I said before, is trying to polish the interface on the settings page, trying to give more effort on the wizard. My wife also said, "Hey, Roberto, maybe it's time to, put QZ apart, trying to stay more with your daughter and something like this, and try to sell the application to someone." I have to say that I received a lot of offers in these years. Some of them are just scam, probably, but other are quite consistently. But I did some sort of gentleman agreement with the community. I try to, I put all myself on this application, and I guess it's like it could be like a trader for the community if I just sell the application to a big company that could probably integrate and destroy all what I did in this year. So it's not what I would try to do. I'm trying to improve it as best I can because, as I said, I'm just me, so it's not easy. But until I will receive a single email saying, "Hey, Roberto, you changed my life because now I'm using my bike or my treadmill every day instead, before QZ, it was just an accessory around my house." Until until I receive these kind of emails, I will continue to develop QZ because I'm learning that I'm helping people. I'm helping seriously people because health is very important. So the fact that QZ is helping the health side of the people, for me, by itself is the key reason to bring everything up. So.
Well, I think, I mean, I can be one of those users who say, yeah, you've helped me personally. It's been a fantastic app and makes my bike and rower so much more useful and so much more used. So personally, thank you. I think many of the other viewers of this will probably be echoing that. So I'm sure you've made a difference in thousands of people's lives with this application. I'm going to thank you so much for your time, Roberto. It was a pleasure both meeting you and talking about QZ. I look forward to seeing what's coming next, of course, whether it's the interface or whatever applications you decide to do. And again, thanks so much for your time. And we'll talk again soon. And thank you to everybody for watching this.
Thank you.
Thank you.